Hello everyone and welcome back to another central control tutorial. In this one we're going to be talking about a feature that's possibly not widely known but incredibly useful. Virtual faders. Why would you want virtual faders? Let's say we've got some kind of command in a module that is controlled by fader controls and we want to control it from a button or an encoder type control. That's exactly what virtual faders allows us to do. And it allows us to do it in a few different ways. So without wasting any more time, let's look at how we do it. So I've got my project here. It's a very simple project. I've got set up the live control LC11, this guy down here. If you're wanting to know how to set this up with vMix or ATEM or anything else, we've got another video all about that. But anyway, and then we've also got a Blackmagic ATEM Mini Extreme in the project. And what I want to do is I want us to be able to control the levels of the channels with these buttons here, but also with these knobs here. So just allowing a bit extra control when we don't have faders accessible to us. So let's look at how we set that up. So I'm going to add the virtual faders module to my project here. So I'm just going to click add device as always. And we will look for virtual faders just by searching that in here. Click OK to add it. And I've now added that to my project. There's no parameters that we need to set here, so I'm going to enable it straight away. So how do we set this up? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to firstly assign our fader commands to our virtual faders. The second part of this will be then getting some input into the virtual fader module to manipulate that value in whichever way we like. So let's start off by assigning the fader of audio channel 1 of the Blackmagic switcher to virtual fader 1. So I have got virtual fader 1 selected here. And all I need to do now is select the Blackmagic ATEM module. And I'm just going to assign the set channel level function to this virtual fader. And now we will be able to modify this channel here using our buttons and our encoders. Let's firstly look at buttons and then we'll move on to encoders. So to do that, we've already said we want to use the LC11 as our input device. So I'm just going to click on the controls button for that. I'm going to turn on jump to control so I can find the control I'd like. And we're going to use effects row button 1 and button 2 to change the level. So we'll be using two buttons here because one button will set it to one level, the other will set it to another level. So for effects 1, I'm going to change the target, the module I want to control, to virtual faders. And we're going to firstly simply use the set fader value absolute command. So this kind of does what it says. Absolute meaning we're going to, when we press the button, it's going to go to an absolute level. Nothing clever, just set it to this level. For button 1, let's have it go to 0, so essentially mute it completely. And then for button 2, we're going to have it set it to, say, 75, which should be more or less unity gain, but you may want to do some tweaking of that. Assign that to effects 2. And now when I come into this window, we'll have a look at the result. So as I press between these buttons, effects 1, it's gone, it's completely muted, infinity gain. Button 2, we're +3, so more or less a little bit higher than unity, but I can, if I tweak this down to maybe about 70, a bit lower, let's go 65. There you go, pretty much 0. And I can press between those buttons to affect the level. Let's do something a little bit cleverer. Let's do this over a period of time. So maybe we want a slight fade. So I'm going to use the set fader value over time command. Again, I've set this to fader 1 because that is the virtual fader that we mapped the ATEM's fader to. So we're going to leave that at 1. But you would change that to any of the 32 virtual faders depending on which one you wanted to control. And again, we're going to set it to 0. And I'm going to have this as a very sharp fade. So we'll do this as 500 milliseconds, just so it's not cutting in and out. We'll do 500 milliseconds of fade time. And then again, very, very similarly, we're going to go to effects 2. And we're going to set this the fader value to 65. So we're going to set the fader to around more or less close enough unity gain. And we'll add that. Now when I press the buttons, if we switch back over to this, as I press it, you can see we've got a short fade between the two. Excellent. Now we'll do one more little trick with buttons and then we'll move on to how we can use this with encoders. And that's going to be to do a relative fade. So what we're going to do here is effects button 1 is going to lower the channel by about 0.05, and we might even go a bit lower. And then effects 2 will be the opposite. It will increase it by let's say we'll go 0.025. So a very slight adjustment so we can have buttons to bring the fader up and down. So let's take a look at how we do that. Back to my screen, I'm going to select effects 1 again. This could be any button you like, and we will use the relative command. So absolute and relative, you can kind of guess the difference between those at this point. Again, fade number is 1 because we're using virtual fader 1. And for the delta, I'm going to set for FX1, we'll do let's go -5. Add that. And then for 2, we won't have the negative, we'll just do 5. And we'll add this. Now, as I press these 2 buttons, look back at the controller, you can see as I press FX1, it is decreasing the volume. And as I press FX2, we are increasing the volume. And I could adjust the numbers I've used to my heart's content to adjust the rate of which we're increasing and decreasing that value. So that's us done with buttons. So let's have a look at how we can use these encoders here on the controller to set the level of a channel, not using a fader, but using like a limitless rotary encoder control. Coming back over to the mapping screen, I will change this button type over to encoder. And the one I want to use is going to be DDR1. It's nice out of the way of the switcher part, and maybe I just want to be able to set a single channel from here. So I'll select that one. And the target, we've already set it to virtual faders, and we again have a set fader value command. As we've said, fade number stays at 1. And then for the sensitivity, higher numbers will be more granular and lower numbers will be faster. I think we'll go with about 7 for this example. So I'll set that to 7. And now simply as I cut back over to here, as I adjust this encoder here, you can see that I am manipulating that fader value from an encoder control. That might be a little bit quick. So all I need to do is just increase this. We'll go to 10. And as I adjust this, it's a very slow adjustment in the audio fader for getting very precise level set. And that is all there is to it. Now, if you've maybe want to do all of the channels on the 8M's mixer, there are 32 virtual faders. So you would just set, say, virtual fader 1 to 8M channel 1, fader 2 to 8M channel 2. And then when you do the input side, you would just adjust that fader number parameter. And that's it. That really is it. If you need more than 32, you can just add another module, and it's as simple as that. We've done all this today in Central Control Core, which is available on Windows and Macintosh. But everything we've seen today is also possible in Central Control Studio, exact same module. That's it for another week. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching.